Brought to you by Knights of Awakening. This is the Labyrinth. I want to thank all of you for joining us before we go any further. You know, these shows exist because you, the people, give us the encouragement to do them and to continue forward with them. Going a little scriptless today. I'm just going to hit on a few little things here and there. A little bit of news on what I'm doing. And going to talk about the basics of mysticism more than anything else. So, before we go any further, the basics of mysticism are probably the most overlooked part of any magical working ever. People spend thousands of dollars on books and tools, items, methodologies, training courses, and, you know, the basics are the core of all of that. Everything manifests through focus, intent, intensity, either emotional or energetic, and how you pour that into causing a manifestation, a result. And this works for everything. And the best mystics I've met are the ones who've developed an amazing amount of emphasis, either emotionally or energetically in their work, or the most intense levels of focus. And all of that kind of ties in together with each other, and it's such a core thing that we forget about this a lot. And as I'm working on writing a book right now, which I don't even have a working title for it yet. I know it'll have something to do with runes, and I know it's going to focus on magic and manifestation. You know, the first chapters were the hardest and the easiest. I'm kind of writing this in 3 parts, and I did the runes first. And after I got done writing everything I could about the runes themselves for the purpose of their implementation in this, it hit me the importance of the basics, because that was really what the first chapter would have to be. And it was basic focusing exercises to build up those cores, you know, your intensity, your focus, and your energetic reserves, so that you're not running on empty without the ability to create a pinpoint focus, right? And having no emotion invested in it. And that really, as I'm now getting into the application of those principles and the exercises meant to build those up, I keep going back to the first few chapters and looking through it and going, out, you know, does this look right? Does that look right? Do I like the way this is? Do I like the way that is? And it really made me want to hit more in my webcast shows, my podcast, if you want to call it, on the importance of those things. The basics in mysticism are all about drawing your mind to a single point. And that's very hard to do. We live in the digital age, okay? And that's kind of why I left the background down for today. And kind of like, because I like to mix it up sometimes too. Because we do our podcasting from my office/bedroom, because I like to have my tools on hand, and I like to have access to my computer. And since I do everything on a big screen TV, I like to have access to my big screen TV when I'm resting. So, you know, I felt like leaving this down to kind of hit on the information overload we run into. I mean, I'm sure you can see, you know, my Kindle in the background there. And, you know, I think my wife's Kindle is in the background there. Lamps, clutter, everything to some degree. And, you know, in front of me right now, you know, I have her altars and, you know, day-to-day gear, my altar and day-to-day gear, as well as mystical gear, books, and things like that. And it hits me on how much of an information overload we deal with, even as a practicing mystic, a practicing wizard, magician, whatever you want to call it. We get hit with more information when we're doing a ritual, probably than our ancestors ever did. I really think that old magic was more, you know, the skin of an animal for its strength and dancing around a fire to focus. I really think that the use of it was more holding onto a stone and focusing your intent into it over the course of hours than drawing diagrams and things like that. But we've distilled that methodology into something that is more formulaic, that is a little bit more scientific? No, not even close to being more scientific, but certainly more formulaic, more science-like in its application, more systematic. And in that systemization of magic, we've developed these things that can be passed down in these ways that work based somewhat on your psychology, based somewhat on your capabilities and what resonates with you. But they require focus and intensity of some form. And in the book that I'm working on, I split that into 3 categories. And if I recall correctly, I need to double check. I split it into focus, intensity, and energy. And intensity is emotional intensity. But you could really split it into 2 areas, focus and charge. And charge is the concept of putting power, be it emotional or some form of energy work method, into the intent of your spell work, of your methodology. Without that, it fails. And the only reason I bring the book up, this is not just me attempting to self-advertise, because frankly, I don't really want a whole lot of people to know that it's out there yet, but at this point, I'm comfortable enough with where I'm at that I don't mind discussing it some. With this, it really hit me. You know, the need to go over the basics. And as I discussed this with everyone from neophytes and novices to advanced practitioners, adepts, and masters themselves, you'd be surprised how many questions I get that fall back to the basics. That fall back to, as my good friend Nag Loki Shivnath once said to me when I asked him what we could do to boil down a system to make it faster, to make it more powerful without having to put so much into its day-to-day work, he looks at me and goes, meditate longer, train harder. And then he goes, do you know I've waited 5 goddamn years to say that to you? Because that's always been my battle cry. And it remains that. You've got to go back to basics all of the time. You need to be finding focusing exercises, finding energy exercises, and finding emotional content exercises or developing them yourself. And it's not that hard to do to develop a focusing exercise. Find something the mind doesn't want to do and make it do it. Hey, that's not that hard. Read a book when you don't feel like reading. Do math problems. Do something you hate. As funny as that's going to sound. Force the mind out of its box and its cage. Force it to expand and then zone that focus in so that you can then use that in your spell work, in your focused magic works. Because the thing is, we call it spell work, and most of your spell work isn't spell work anymore. Hardly anyone I know who does magic does it with a prescribed formula. Even I don't use a full prescribed formula in my work. I tailor a basic set of methods. And that's with a shop that has different listings. And I look at the listing, and I look at the method that I've written down for it, and I go, how can I do this better for what this client's asking? How can I do this better for what needs to be done? And I'm telling you, in your own day-to-day spell work, that's what you need to be doing. You need to be tailoring those methods and recognize that you've got to have that focus, that intensity within your energy work, within the putting power into it. Otherwise, you're going through the motions, and you might achieve something once in a while, but you're not going to achieve reproducible results. So, really short episode today. I just wanted to hit on the importance of going back to basics. It's a real quick reminder to everyone. This is not supposed to be a real long episode, and it's not a real long episode. The basics are simple. Force the mind into focus. Learn to draw in, control, manipulate energy in such a way that you're restoring your own reserves. I don't care if you're doing chakra work or Qigong. I don't care if you're doing, within the chakra work, Kundalini chakra work, or more traditional methods. Anything that works for you, so long as it builds up your energy reserves, so that it makes you stronger. You know, this has been the core of my methods for years, and the Labyrinth started out really hitting on this a lot more. And it's a topic that we should come back to every 5 episodes. Every 5 episodes, I should replay this episode for you. Or I should hit on it in a new way. The problem is expressing this in a new way. And that, again, like I said, you know, as I was writing, I go back and I double check, well, did I go over this? Did I make sure this was clear enough? And when I go for the final edit, I have a feeling that I'm going to gain 50 pages of text in the final revisions, just because I'll have to expand on areas, and maybe I won't. Maybe the initial work was good enough. I don't know. I don't go back to my own work until I'm ready to. And therefore, I'm kind of at the phase of the manifestation methods right now, so that is what it is. So that's your update from me. That's your update from the Knights of Awakening on this. You know, the book itself is not going to be from the Knights of Awakening. It's going to be self-published. But we're definitely going to have a shout-out to the Knights of Awakening, and especially Justin and David, whom without I would not be here doing this right now. You know, the Labyrinth started because, you know, David Edge looks at me and goes, well, I think you could do a show on mysticism. I can't do a show on mysticism. I can't. How am I going to cover a topic that boils down to meditate harder, or meditate longer, train harder, into a half an hour long, or 2 hour long shows, because that's what we were doing back then? Isn't that scary? I can't imagine how some of you who've been with us forever made it through the 2 hour shows, because even as much as we loved doing the work, we would come out of the shows and be like, oh. But, you know, and then he weaseled me into a conversation after that statement, in which he had me explain the basics of rune methodology and the application of energy work into the runes. And after he got me talking, he sat back and he went, mm-hmm, yeah. Well, could you go into a little more detail on that? I'm not sure I quite understand it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Could you go into a little more detail? And I didn't catch it until we were at the 2 hour mark. We were at 2 hours and 30 minutes. He goes, well, I think you could do a show because you just did a 2 hour one and you're burning half an hour that you ain't got to burn with. So I owe those people a debt of gratitude, and I wanted to say thank you on this show specifically to those two, without whom I would not be here doing this right now. I wouldn't have the joy of reaching out to you and teaching you through this method and this platform, and it's been one of the most joyous parts of my life, being able to reach out there and make contact with you who are learning and who are growing, and to help you do a little bit better in your mystical work and your magical practices. So, again, don't forget the basics. The basics are the core of everything you do. If you stop doing the basics, that depends on what you're doing instead. If you're practicing all the time, you're constantly doing rituals and spell work, focusing exercises where you're directing energy towards an intent, you're going to be fine because you're still using the basics in those things. But you're not going to be able to explain it as well, and you're going to need to go back to the basics and relearn them to explain them whenever you teach. But if you're not doing any of that, and then one day you're called upon to use your mystical might, you're going to find it sorely lacking. And that is just the truth of the world. But it works the same with everything else, you know. I've not been doing my physical exercises as much because I've been focusing on the mystical more. Been focusing on the writing, been focusing on the shop, been focusing on the shows. And truth be told, I don't lift as much as I used to. My physical might is somewhat lacking compared to what it was last year. Well, imagine that. When you're not doing the basics, you lose a little bit of something. And maybe you'll gain something in somewhere else. And if that's what's important to you at that time and you feel that you don't need what you were getting out of mysticism, I'm not telling you that you're doing something wrong. Of all people, I applaud you for finding your path, whatever that is. But don't expect that you're going to have the mystical muscle that you had a year before or 2 years before when you were in the deeper training. That's just the nature of it, folks. And that's kind of the message I want to hit on with, you know, don't forget those basics, especially energy work meditations. Emotional meditations, meditations designed to bring about emotional states, are valuable because that is a way of driving energy, in my opinion. But I can't define that in a way that I can give you a definite. But those energy work exercises, they provide energy regardless of what else you're doing. Don't slack on those and you will find manifestation is a fairly easy thing. Do slack on those, though. Do put yourself in a position where you are no longer pushing the envelope, or at least maintaining the bar. And your abilities are going to decrease, and when you want them or when you need them, they won't be there. And if you're not going to rely on them or use them at all, that's fine. So you won't want them or need them, so them not being there won't matter as much. But if you lose the basics, you lose everything that they're built upon. And that's the message for today. A reminder to look at the basics. Look at focusing exercises that you can do to hone your mind. Look at energy work exercises. Again, Qigong is an excellent method. Deep breathing exercises on their own can work. Look at the ability to hone your intent and the ability to amplify your emotional state in a direction. These things will lead you to better manifestation. And that's really kind of the goal with the Labyrinth, is to improve the mystical community. And I hope that this episode helped with that. And I want to thank you all again for joining. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. It really makes a world of difference to us. And as always, awaken the night within.